WNST Tampa for all things Caps and the Bolts as the Rays come to Camden Yards this weekend. And certainly this guy travels usually between the Baltimore and Washington corridor, but he's kind of all over the place on the baseball side of things as he covers Major League Baseball for ESPN as a senior writer there. You can follow his journey out on Twitter where there is a purple-lit sky over a once semi-filled Camden Yards. He is Eddie Matz of ESPN and ESPN Eddie Matz out on Twitter. Well, Eddie, I tried to get you on back when the Orioles were relevant, but that only lasted for about 48 hours back at opening day. And for everyone I didn't get a chance to talk to in March or April, here comes May, and certainly the story has unfolded here in a way that I don't think anyone could have scripted anything this horrible. But I also know that the inaction is what's kind of creating sort of this, car wreck and everyone gathered around it, trying to see how this is going to turn out this summer, because we know it's not going to end with a parade around here, right?
No, definitely not. But you're right. I mean, I tend to be on the more pessimistic side of things when it comes to the Orioles, but even I didn't foresee what's been going on with them. I mean, just like you said, kind of train wreck status right now.
Well, Ginsburg and I got into it at the beginning of the year because I predicted 85 wins, and I don't believe me, I'm not an optimist or a supporter of anything this ownership's done in 25 years. But I would at least say this: I thought the spending of money on Cashner, the way they did it, good job. Cobb, if you're really thinking about you're going to give Machado $250 million, thinking about reopening scope, it'd be nice to have a pitcher around here for a couple of years. But I bought in. I mean, I'm the fool who said they could win 85 games with this outfit. Now, I thought Boston and New York would both win 100. I didn't think they would be relevant, but I thought it would at least look like they were trying, which I appreciate. I really do.
Yeah, and they are trying. It's just not working. So, yeah, as far as the inaction, the inactivity, I think. And I mean, they're not coming back from this. It's not happening. I think when they were 6-16, I think at that point I wrote a story that there had only been there was like 30 teams in history since the beginning of the wild card playoff era. So like 23 years, there had been 30 teams that had started off 6-16 or worse. None of them had made the playoffs, and only one of them had even had a winning record, and that was actually Dan Duquette's Red Sox team in '96, I think. So that was 6-16, and since then, it hasn't gotten any better. So they're not coming back from this, and I think there are a lot of people who say, "Oh, they got to sell now," and every day they wait is gonna, they're gonna get less. But that's not entirely true. When you're talking about the difference between trading some guys that have, 2 months of time left on their contract versus a year and 2 months, yeah, there's a price difference. But the difference between having a guy for 2 months versus 3 months, I'm not sure how much of a difference that makes. And even if there is a difference, it is at least offset, if not more, by the fact that, in May, if you're trying to, the market hasn't developed, right? Like the Dodgers lost Seager, so maybe they need somebody. Maybe they don't. But whatever the number of buyers is right now, it's not going to be as many as the number of buyers come as we get closer to July 31st. And the more buyers you have, right now, if the Dodgers wanted to trade for Machado, they could name their price. But, come, let's say July 27th, if the Dodgers still need a shortstop and there's 7 other teams that need Machado, then the Orioles can name their price. So I think there's, as much as Orioles fans want that fire sale to happen right now, it makes sense to wait.
Well, for the waiting part of this, no one's been fired, no heads have rolled, Buck's holding the funeral before and after every game. The stadium is, you'll be there this week because they're home for a week and a half. I mean, it's alarmingly empty, even by empty standards, when I did Free the Birds in 2006, which was a little Nostradamus in all of this, because my worst fear was that the team would become this thing that even when they win, people wouldn't come back the way they used to come back, and certainly the Nationals' existence under that, we're never going to see 3.6 million people here. That's just kind of gone. But I am concerned for the future of the franchise. I am concerned how long this Angelos illness will last before his demise and who's running the place. I mean, there's no one who can tell anyone in the media or any of the fan base who's really running the place at this point. And it's clearly not Duquette on the baseball side, although they will charge him with this. The Brady Angelos, as I like to call him, involved in this. And then there's the poor health of the owner and this whole Willy Wonka, Wizard of Oz, man behind the curtain that we never see or we never hear from. I don't know who the decision makers are here. I mean, there's no integrity or trust with information with the team, and there's no movement. So I don't know how they're expecting people to come out and support this at this point, Eddie.
Yeah, but that stuff that you're talking about, the behind the curtain stuff, I think from a fan perspective is the least of the worries. I don't think that's why there's, 10,000 a night at this point, right? If it's not a weekend. I don't think that's about all. That stuff is concerning, but I don't think that's why you're getting 10,000 out of the park. That has to do with 8 wins and 1,000 losses. It's just it's just not good baseball to watch. Dylan Bundy was like the lone bright spot, not lone. Machado's been hitting, but Dylan Bundy was the ray of light at the beginning of the season. Looked fantastic, and now even he's getting pummeled. So then you start to wonder about, is he healthy? And so to me, it's all, from a fan's perspective, it's all about that stuff right now. It's just not good baseball. Even when they haven't been good, they've been good on defense. They're not even good on defense right now. So it's just,
well, why it's not good is they haven't picked good players. They haven't had a system that's picked good players. They haven't paid the best players the most amount of money. They gave Chris Davis they still owe him $130 million. It's insane. And Machado's about to walk out of here for whatever bags of baseballs they're going to get from the Dodgers or whomever it's going to be at the end of July. But the big picture for me, Eddie, is who's making that decision. Who is going to be the one that says we want this guy from Fresno and this guy from Bakersfield and that guy from Visalia in high A ball? Those are the players that we are, we can't pick Juan Bell and Manny Alexander on this one, and I'm not sure that anything of Moncado, kind of, that ship has sailed on that. Literally, Chris sailed, I guess. But for me, who is going to be the one that picks the players that come back? Who is picking the players right now? Who is picking Cobb and giving him $53 million 10 days before the season begins? And none of this is coming from Peter anymore. So Peter clearly isn't making the decision. So then who is? Who's going to be the one charged with fixing it? It's certainly not going to be Buck or Dan Duquette at this point, and it isn't Adam Jones or Chris Davis or any of those players or Machado. The building of the franchise has to be done by somebody in a suit, and we're not even sure who that is. Maybe it's in sweatpants with Brady Anderson, right?
Yeah, and it's exactly, because at least Brady stands a much better chance of being in Baltimore for the foreseeable future than Duquette, certainly, I think. And who knows what's going to happen with Buck? Maybe he moves to front office, maybe he doesn't. But that's what's concerning, is all these great rebuilds that we've seen recently, like what's going on with the Astros. Jeff Luna was there to orchestrate that, right? You have to have somebody who's vested long term, and it's very poor timing. It's inconvenient that both Showalter and Duquette have their contracts up at the end of this year. Again, who knows what's going to happen going forward? But ideally, you'd like somebody in the driver's seat who's is going to be here for 6 years or 5 years or 7 years, because then they're planting seeds in a garden that they're going to get to see, right? It's their legacy on the line. Although, I think, regardless of what happens with, Duquette, if he ends up staying here, which I don't think that's going to happen, but if he does, fine. If he doesn't, presumably he would want to continue working in baseball. I think he seems to enjoy that world. And if he does, he's not going to want to leave it a train wreck here. He's not going to want to leave things in shambles. So there is that public perception that, in theory, would motivate him to do the right thing. So,
well, the other side of this is that if it's a time to blow it up, and I think we can all agree, okay, blow it up, you're stuck with Davis, and I'll get to Bundy in a minute. Okay, fine. Well, who is going to be the next person in charge? Who is that Mark Shapiro they're going to hire, or that Dombrowski, or that baseball mind, or that Theo Epstein, or beyond that, the business side of this? Who's going to go out and sell skyboxes? Who's going to be the president of all of this? And I think the swirling change that's coming, because the days days of Peter Angelos, calling for the firing of Ken Rosenthal at the Baltimore Sun, all that's done, right? And the decision-making of, well, you signed a player, what do you mean? Let's get our doctors involved in and, say this guy's got a bad elbow, which they did a bunch of times. That's done, but who's going to be the person they're going to hire if it's not Buck? Who's the next manager? Who's the next Duquette? And in a normal organization, they would blow this thing up, go on a job search across the world, and find the best assistant general something they could find. I don't know that this organization can hire anyone right now. I mean, it is a little toxic right now saying, well, you're stuck with Chris Davis, and Brady Anderson's just going to come in sweatpants and change in the locker room and sign players when he wants to and report to the boys whenever he wants. I mean, it's really messy, and I think at 100,000 feet, we can say, well, they're going to lose a lot of games here this year and whatever, but what's the next thing that happens here? Because they're not going to fire Buck during the year. They're clearly not going to fire Duquette. But what happens in October, November? And they still have a draft next month, too, and they have this Machado and maybe even Zach Britton sweepstakes as well.
I don't know. My head hurts just hearing you talk about it. It's like,
I talk about it all freaking day, Eddie. And I thank God for the Caps. Thank God for the Ravens. Thank God the Ravens drafted Lamar Jackson. Because if this is all I had, dude, I would go Scanners, bro. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I think you're already halfway there. I'm worried about you. I'm concerned.
Well, it's only been 25 years. I mean, how much? I turned 50 this year. I would like to see a parade here with them, and people ask me all the time, like, what is going to change? And I said, probably nothing till the ownership changes. And I really did get optimistic about the way they went for it this year, the way they gave Cobb money. And not as a goofy fan, as a strategic guy. Well, they found a cheap-ish pitcher who can do it in this division, who's a good guy, who'd be a good leader, good mentor for these guys. And now the wheels come off the cart, and now we have the Bundy problem, right? So Bundy is the story from the baseball side because he pitches every fifth day, and he was one of the things we were excited about 3 weeks ago, Ed.
Yeah, it's hard to look at what he's done these last few starts. Got pounded by the Royals, historically pounded, like one of the worst outings ever by a starting pitcher. So, he says he's healthy, but it's hard to look at that and think, like, how could that guy be the same guy that was dominating at the beginning of the season? Well, we've seen him kind of go up and down. He kind of goes in and out, where he gets hit harder, maybe he doesn't. He has some good outings, and he has some not so good outings. But that one against the Royals was just, that makes you think. That makes you take pause. So it's concerning, to say the least, right? Especially because one way or another, if you're going to hold on to him and try and rebuild and have him included as part of that rebuild, and he stays here, you need him to be the ace. And if not, if the Orioles really want to be forward thinking and put him out there, like in retrospect, four starts ago would have been a great time to. His value was probably never going to be higher, right? Here's a guy with Tommy John surgery in his past. He was pitching great. Like, to compare his value, not that the Orioles were thinking about trading him, but compare his value, 3 weeks ago in the middle of April to the middle of May, and it's night and day. So it's alarming on a lot of levels.
Well, they're going to play 125 more games, right? And whoever gets the 4 to 5 at bats a night, whoever gets the 20 pitches out of the bullpen or whatever, I would see them starting to roll through players, and I think that's what concerns me for how many games they're going to lose, because we're pretty convinced Machado won't be on this team the last 60 games of the year, right? Where Bundy is and where Gausman is and where the guys who are going to be on the team next year, Mancini, these are the guys, Scope, that I'm most interested in, but it's the rest of the moving parts around all of this, and why would you continue to give Chris Davis at bats if he's going to bat 160 and be horrific? But I don't know that they have any choice with that, right? Like, Chris Davis's name has to be in the lineup until such point that they fake an injury for him or something like that. Like, the level of frustration for him, it's painful to watch, right, Eddie?
Yeah, and the worst part about it, the most painful part is, like you said, how do you get out of it? It's just one of those, it's a no-way-out situation. And, financially speaking, I went to Wharton, right? And I remember in economics, one of the few things I remember from college was sunk cost. So on one level, you think whether or not if you don't play him, it seems like a huge waste of money, but either way, you're paying it, right? So there's part of me that says, even though it seems ludicrous to not play him because you're giving him that much money, it doesn't matter. You're paying him either way, so you might as well put someone on the field who's going to be productive. And who knows? Maybe that will be him. I mean, at this point, there's a whole lot of data that suggests it's not going to get much better. But if you could find someone in his place, whether it's, another first baseman or whether it's Mancini moving to first and another outfielder who you find at a really slight marginal cost, whether it's, I don't know, somebody off the scrap heap or, a couple $1 million a year, why not, right? Like, instead of spending, the 100 and, let's say it's 100, whatever it is right now, $130 million left that you're paying him. If you knew you could find another guy to take his place, you're still paying Davis, but then you're paying the other guy like, $5 million over 2 years. Would you rather be paying $130 to Davis and have him playing every day, or would you rather be paying Davis and this other guy $135 and have someone who's going to be a lot more productive? Right? Like, to me, the 135 option might sound better.
Well, I'm old enough to remember Glenn Davis and the disappointment that came along with that and giving up the players and, certainly seeing Ryan Howard at the end and you're seeing even Teixeira and A-Rod and, those New York contracts that looked horrific. This is a whole, different level of horrific, and more than that, this is the kind of organization, and certainly if Peter were around, Peter would just make him play, right? Like, I don't think there's any chance Peter would say, here's $130 million, get out the door. He went into litigation with Albert Bell for a year and a half on the hip, and, they started planting that seed so they could get insurance money in the offseason. I mean, I went back and researched all that. I don't think there's any insurance on just stinking, right? Like, I don't know how that would work for him, but I do wonder, 2019, 20, 21, 22, they're going to have some sunk cost, as you've pointed out. How far do you go with this? And if you were to release him, I don't think he catches on with the Rockies and finds his stroke and hits 264 with 28 home runs somewhere else next year. But that's always a possibility. He looks healthy. I mean, I'll say that about him. He doesn't look like he's hurt.
Yeah. Now, if they do decide to get rid of him at some point before this contract is over, somebody's going to pick him up, and who knows what's going to happen. He's probably not going to magically turn back into the guy that the Orioles thought he was when they gave him all the money, but stranger things have happened. But yeah, it's an unwinnable situation for management because the moment that contract was given, it wasn't a good contract, and so now they're just stuck in this place where what do you do? I mean, no matter what, there's really any scenario that you play out, whether it's they keep playing him, that doesn't look good. If they bench him, that doesn't look good. If they release him, that doesn't look good. I mean, no one's going to take the contract. They can't trade him. So it's not good.
Even around here where, things are bad on the Orioles side, there's still the big picture that I look at the standings and I watch a little baseball tonight, and there's a pretty good season for baseball right now, right? All the way around, the Yankees and the Red Sox are so otherworldly that they're interesting, and there's going to be this battle of the Titans all summer long, and they'll see each other in October. They're both going to be involved, as we know. And these races have been really kind of tight, and I'm interested that the Central's so bad that all those teams have struggled, but also in the National League, these doormat Braves and Phillies, and even the Mets recently getting up and moving around and giving the Nationals some run. And while I thought the Cubs were going to run away and hide for 5 years when they won, 18 months later, it's almost like they didn't win at all, and they're just one of the teams in the Central. These are nice races, and other than the Yankees and the Red Sox, who I think have pulled, the rest of this thing feels sort of fair and balanced so far. That's good for baseball, I think.
It is, and even you talk about the Yankees and the Red Sox being so far ahead of everyone else, but relative to each other, that's going to be fun too to watch them. Like as much as, especially people from Baltimore, as much as you hate the Red Sox or the Yankees, that's going to be fascinating too, right? Like who knows how that's going to play out? That might go down to the wire. They're probably both going to make the playoffs. It doesn't really matter who wins the division and who's the wild card, but that's going to be super interesting also. But yeah, I agree with you. There's a lot of balance around the game. There's also, there's been some cool stories, right? There's been, what have we already seen? 3 no-hitters, right? Paxton throws a no-hitter. You had the Dodgers combined no-hitter.
In 3 different countries, literally, right? And
yeah.
Canadians involved, and the Astros are the defending champions, and we got a kid that pitches and hits. It's crazy, right?
Yeah, it's that, and it's, the Braves, Ronald Acuna, I did a story on him last month, the hot prospect who's come up and looks like the real deal. That's exciting. They've got, their whole team is young and exciting. Johnny Venter is coming back from 3 Tommy John surgeries. There's a lot of cool stories around baseball. The Astros, I don't know what's going on with their pitching staff, but it's ridiculous with what they're doing. Whether or not, I think there's been allegations of whether they're using substances or not. But I feel like every night I turn around and one of their pitchers, like their number 7 starter, is striking out 23 guys. Crazy.
We need a little bit of that around here, Eddie. Well, I know you won't be frequenting Camden Yards too much this year because you don't like bad baseball any more than the next guy, but I do appreciate the visits with us and the insights that you bring. And fix the Orioles, Eddie. Free the birds. That's all I can say, buddy.
Will do.
Eddie Matz, ESPN. Eddie Matz out on Twitter as well as at ESPN.com, and the worldwide leader covering baseball in the Baltimore-Washington corridor, which may be the Washington corridor. And the good news is I get in the car and drive to the All-Star game. I love that part of this summer, so that'll be fun. The BuyAToyota.com audio vault is there 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox digitally each and every morning. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness at PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. Reminder, the Pimlico entries are also on the front of WNST.net as well as in our morning newspaper. Next week, blanket, full coverage of all things Preakness and Justify and Bob Baffert and all the great stories around the track. I've already started to confirm some guests for next week. We'll be chock full of great horse racing coverage here, as we also have some Raven stuff with Lamar Jackson and Joe Flacco. We did some lacrosse this week. I will be in Tampa this week with the Caps and the Lightning for Game 1 and 2, Ed Frankovic on my side as well. And, of course, Luke's at the ballpark all week. Got a lot happening around here. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram. Streaming live on our Facebook Live right here, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. Also want to give a shout-out to our friends at Coons Ford Security Boulevard for sponsoring our WNST Tech Service. This is our breaking news service. Whenever the Orioles decide to trade Manny Machado, when the Ravens drafted Lamar Jackson, we send that text out to you. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis will be here on Friday this week instead of Thursday. Back to Thursdays next week for the Sunday Sports Voice. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.